In 2002, my sinuses were severely infected and I was in pain. I had intense pain for about 2 months and I was completely exhausted. I think it was around midnight on the 15th of January when my pain became so severe that I couldn't bear it. My husband and children were asleep. I have 2 sons and 2 daughters. As I was suffering, I looked at the clock behind me. It was 10 o'clock. I laid my head back on the pillow and said, "God, I surrender." I don't know how I articulated that sentence. After saying that, I didn't comprehend anything else. The next thing I realized was that I was suspended between earth and sky. I was inside a room, neither vertically nor horizontally. My body was floating in the room. I looked around and saw my head on the pillow and felt completely surrounded. I had a 360-degree view. My husband and children were asleep. It was silent and there was no sound. I realized that I had left my body. Right at that moment, I felt no pain. All the stress, headaches, and problems I had were gone. My attention was drawn to 2 angels. They were very beautiful and luminous. Some people, when their souls depart, see their relatives. But I had no relationship with them. I knew they were angels, and at that moment, I realized they were angels. I felt like they were familiar to me, as if they had always been with me. We didn't speak with words. As we looked at each other, we understood everything. Meaning was conveyed, not words. There was no language for me to speak with them. They were joyful and expressed happiness, telling me, "Welcome. Let's go. We must go." I wondered where I should go. What was going to happen? As we went and as I soared with those 2 angels, it was very beautiful there. It was dark and silent, until we reached a point and I heard a sound along the way. It wasn't like earthly sounds, it was heavenly melodies that I heard. The melodies were so gentle that they excited me. Longing took hold of me to the point where I was speechless and couldn't find words. I visualized having hands and feet, but I couldn't remember my hands and feet. However, my subconscious mind felt like I still had them. When I approached that light, it was so intense that I felt like I no longer existed. I was both there and not there because of the magnitude and greatness of that light. I remember that as I moved towards that light, like a mother embracing her child, that light enveloped me thousands of times more. I perceived the heartbeat of existence there. That light was so immense and filled with love that I can't describe it. Even though several years have passed since then, every moment it resonates with me. That love was so immense that I didn't want to let it go. Moment by moment, as I was in the embrace of that light, a complete awareness of existence rushed towards me. I felt like I was receiving all the knowledge of existence. I was so overwhelmed by that love and divine light that I didn't even care about anything else. I felt like I became one with that light. The light had no direction. The light was so bright that if we were to put all the lights of the world together, it might not equal 1,000th of that light. The love emanating from that light was so captivating that I had no more desires. I felt like I had achieved everything I wanted. It was as if I belonged to that light and had reached it. I didn't want to be separate from that light at all. I had no desire to think about that light anymore. There I didn't think about anything at all because everything was that light. We are all part of the light of God. Before my experience, I was very preoccupied with illness and other problems. I always wondered why these things happened to me. Why should my life be like this? Why should this problem happen to me? I was always looking for reasons. There were many issues that I couldn't come to terms with. In that moment, all those things disappeared. Because in that place, they explained all the reasons to me. All those events had to happen so that I could learn the lesson I needed from coming back to this life. I don't know how long I was there. In terms of time, there was no time there. After gradually separating from that light, because I had reached the awareness I needed from it afterward, I don't know how long it took, I saw those 2 angels again, who told me that I had to go in that direction. When I looked at the point where my house was, it zoomed. It was as if all the earth was dark, and only in my house there was light. They showed me a future where if I go with them, certain events will happen, and if I don't go with them and return to my body, those events will also happen. Quickly, for the sake of my children, I decided to return to my body. My eldest son was 11 years old, my 2 daughters were 4 years old, and my youngest son was 2 years old. They were very young. The things they showed me from the future were unbearable for me. Despite the immense love I had there, I couldn't resist what would happen to my children after my death. I decided to describe everything I saw. I said how wonderful it is that I can say that all existence comes from love and that there is nothing but love. Exactly in my mind was to come back and describe all these things. But when I reached a point towards the earth, a veil was completely drawn over all that awareness and I forgot all of them. Everything I saw, the places I was taken to, all disappeared from my memory. Except for these things that I am describing to you now. When I came back to myself, I saw that I was in the space of our house, standing and looking with amazement at my husband and children while they were sleeping. This time I was standing on the floor of the room and not floating. In a sloping manner with very, very severe pain, I entered my body. A very strong pressure entered me. Because the soul is very delicate and the body is very hard, this pain had to exist, and there was no escape from it. The moment I entered my body, I suddenly sat down. My headache intensified again. My anxiety returned, and that's when I cried loudly. I realized that I had returned to my body and the experience I had was very peaceful and nothing compared to it. I remembered all of these things at that moment. I cried a lot and my crying woke up my husband. I described all of this to him and he told me to go to sleep. There's nothing, it's just a dream you saw. I kept crying loudly and saying that I want to go back. I made a mistake. Tears were streaming down my face and I said, "Bring me back." I swore to God to bring me back. I didn't want to be here. My place is not here. I cried so much that my husband also cried with me. I said the only reason I returned to my body was to take care of my children for a time, which I do not know exactly how long. My view on life and death changed. I became eager for life. I wanted to help, live with love, and give this love to my loved ones. I look at everything from a divine perspective. Whatever happens, I no longer judge it. Before this experience, I was so absorbed in my personal life that I didn't pay attention to my loved ones. I was always complaining. I was always saying, why don't I have this? Why don't I have that? Why has my life become like this? But when death happened, the vastness and majesty of this experience expanded my view of life. I think death is the most beautiful thing God has given us. Nothing compares to it. I saw that many people are afraid of death. Even of its name. Death is not annihilation and nothingness. Death is a passage. Why do we make death so difficult? We're living and will also experience it in due time. I think they showed me my whole life when my soul separated from my body. Why? Because sometimes when something happens, I feel like I've seen it somewhere before. I don't know where I saw it, but I feel like they showed it to me at that time. They showed me the past and the future. When it happens, I understand that I have seen it before. But I can't predict it. But I get a feeling before it happens that something is about to happen, but I don't know what. When it happens, I say I have experienced this before. I feel the angels that came before me came to be my companions. I feel they were with me before. I feel like I knew them before. When I saw them, I didn't feel they were strangers. I felt like I had seen them many times before. And they had the same feeling. Even though they were not from my relatives or acquaintances. An ancient sense of unity and familiarity existed between us. This experience is just one of the experiences of near-death individuals. Over 100 experiences will be published on this channel. For more experiences, subscribe to my YouTube channel.